Okay, good afternoon. I'd like to welcome all of you to the ERF's emergency response to a briefing on cybercrime. Today is National Internet Safety Day, which is a fantastic, by design, occurrence as opposed to a coincidence. Today we're really lucky to have with us Senator Seery Kearney, barrister at law, who specialises not only in employment law but in GDPR and cyber. And we're really grateful that she is the DPO for the Employment and Recruitment Federation. So without further ado, I'd like to thank you for attending with us today, and I'd like to hand over to Seery Kearney. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Siobhan, and to Anna. Anna's going to be my beautiful assistant who will put up slides, and we're very happy to email out the slides. They're a little bit dense in definitions as we go through, but that's deliberate so that you have I suppose, a reference point afterwards. So you're all very welcome. I am going to talk you through, if you go on to the introduction. And okay. So I'm going to talk you through, I suppose, a phenomenon and an experience that's going on at the moment in the recruitment sector, not just in Ireland, but across Europe, and give you a few pointers in how to deal with it, how to look out for it, and to explain it to those of you who haven't experienced it yet. So in December, it's just a little bit of background first. In December 2023, just last month or the month before last, Grant Thornton published a report that that arose out of interviews that they held with privacy or with professionals that attended a cybersecurity and AI risk event that they had held. So there were 221 professionals, and out of that, over half, they were representative of different businesses, and out of that, over half of the businesses reported that they had been subject to a cyber attack in the past year. And that they also noted, so when they asked businesses, what is your cybersecurity policy? Quite a significant number didn't have any cybersecurity policy. So that has caused alarm, and there is a business, I suppose, response to that, and response from professionals in AI and cybersecurity that are trying to respond to that for Irish businesses. And there will be a number of events throughout this year, but this session is specifically for the recruitment sector. Okay, well, I think, did I do that, Anna, or did you? My button seems live, but maybe not. Okay, so let's just look at a few of the statistics here. Nearly a fifth of Irish businesses don't have a cybersecurity policy. So I mean that's really significant. 1 in 5 don't have any cybersecurity policy, and yet nearly 60% have been subject to a cyber attack. Over 2/3 of businesses and over 10% of businesses said that they weren't prepared for it at all. And of those who who were in attendance, over a third had not received any training in cybersecurity in the last 12 months. So that is significant. And I suppose we know about GDPR training, we do employment training, we do a whole heap of training, but maybe cybersecurity isn't something that we think to train in, and maybe it is that we don't know where to turn for training in it. We'll go on to the next one, please. Thank you. So I am part of the World Employment Confederation Data and AI Task Force, and we had a meeting there 2 weeks ago. And at that meeting, one of the agencies from Europe put on the agenda about a phenomenon that was happening in recruitment, where there were live brand impersonations, as in pop-up shops being set up and advertising being directed for those for members of the public to come and attend those, give over their details, and then be charged for recruitment service. So these were fraudulent brand impersonation, and also WhatsApp scams running with their candidates, where the candidates were being contacted and the scammers were representing themselves to be, let's say, Manpower or some similar very large companies within Europe, and masquerading as being that brand. So naturally, they were very concerned, and they have taken excellent actions, some of which I report here. But so I suppose when Ger King and I were on that call and in that meeting, and we discussed it afterwards, and then we did a little bit of a canvas to see how prevalent is this in Ireland amongst the recruitment sector, and we found it to be quite significant number of recruitment agencies have been subjected to certainly the WhatsApp scam, but also social media scams. So we'll go on to the next ones. So I want to kind of give you a few definitions and understanding, what sort of threats are going on out there. And that you understand some of the language about this. So apologies if you already know this, but this just to give everybody an idea of what happens and what can happen to you. So the first is brand impersonation on social media. And that is where the business name is taken, or the image or the logo, or some identifying, there are some very well-known logos of recruitment agencies out there, and that they are on social media, fake social media accounts, or fake websites, pretending to be that entity with the intention of luring people in and procuring money and data from them. So this is different to parody accounts or fan accounts. This is deliberate, coercive social media impersonation of a brand, of a business brand, in order to induce candidates to contact them and to get money out of them. So it's called brand impersonation. I'm going to the next one. Okay, so then what that also involves is a business identity theft. So there have been a significant, PwC published a report last year that showed that 47% of companies worldwide have had the fraud of their business identity being stolen in the previous 12 months. So either business identity theft, it's also known as corporate identity theft, and it is the illegal impersonation of a business with the intention of fraud. And it boils down into a number of ways. So how does that happen? Let's have a look at it. So first is fake social media accounts. In those, you have fake logos, names, other identifying, putting themselves up on social media, masquerading as that entity, with a view to pulling in people and their information. I personally, I myself, in wearing my political hat, I've had this happen to me in the last 2 weeks, and I had to move to get it all shut down. But we'll talk about what you do and how you do that. For some of the recruitment agencies, there have been aggressive advertising campaigns done on the back of that. So they're, that they're actively canvassing using the name of a well-known agency in Ireland. Okay, go on to the next one. You also have websites that look almost identical, and maybe some of you have seen this in a text message that you get for An Post. And when you click into it, it looks for all the world like the An Post website, but with a little bit of checking up on it, you realize it's not. So you may have got those. Similarly, there are these lookalike websites are going on for the toll bridges, for people to pay tolls that allegedly they have run up. All right, so the next one. Next one is domain spoofing. So this is either cyber squatting, where they register a domain name in anticipation. So they're watching what is being registered with the company's registration office, and then registering that company name. Or else typo squatting, which is to register a domain name that is one letter out. And it is a very simple typo. You wouldn't pick it up because your brain reads what should be there rather than what is there. And so you can be induced into a scam website and induced into making purchases on that level. Okay. phishing emails, and all of us should be warned well about these, that if you get an email, where the logo and the name of the company impersonating employees, and it is to trick people into giving banking information. This has happened with recruitment agencies. So it is in some instances been used to obtain loans in the names of some candidates for identity theft or fraud, but also there have been credit lines, money been authorized. It has happened that the CEO of some of the recruitment agencies have received an email saying that they need to authorize the transfer of money to a specific payment for an invoice that's urgently come in, and it's not from the accounts department in the company at all. We'll go on to the next. So then looking at trademark ransom, this is where the logo and trademark of the company is held to ransom. This is a less prevalent one to happen in Ireland. We'll go on to the next. Fake invoices. This is a very familiar. I've had to deal with a number of the aftermath of this, not in recruitment so far, but in other industries where the invoice is sent out, and immediately afterwards a second invoice will arrive in the inbox of the customer, and it will say, apologies, the first invoice had the wrong bank details. Please transfer the payment to these bank details, and it is to induce the payment to a fraudulent address and a fraudulent account. Okay, so let's just have a quick scan of, what happens. What is the impact of identity theft? First of all, it's tarnished brand reputation. People who have been induced into purchases, induced into giving information, may avoid your brand in the future. Next one. Loss of customer trust. People start to wonder, is this a real social media account? Am I safe to engage in this? Especially when we rely on LinkedIn a lot in the recruitment industry, and it may cause people not to come back, not to have trust in your entity. Okay, and ultimately a loss of revenue occurs. We'll go on to the next one. So I'm just conscious of time. There have been instances where claims have been made with the revenue commissioners. That's why the raw system is so tight and relies on double level identification and verification. So there have been instances where money has been claimed for refunds. So that has happened. Okay, we'll go on to next. We'll look at prevention. Okay. So what's the first thing that can happen? Well, you can buy in systems and technology. There are particular sites that can be used where you will automatically track where your images are being used, where your logo is being used, and that it is automatically constantly tracing the use of your logo, the use of your name, the use of your personnel on social media. And there are a number of such websites, and there are a number of such programs that you can buy. A number of years ago, we all had Norton on our computer. Well, now we need to upgrade that to a much more significant, sophisticated response in tracking your logo and the use of your staff's names and the details of your company. And so there are programs that can do that. Another possible thing you can do is to look at brand misspellings. Have someone who regularly goes through your brand name and searches it out on the internet. I mean, for all of us, we should all be regularly putting in our own names and seeing what's out there and where we appear and what comes up in response to a search for yourself. But also from a brand perspective, looking at what would be a popular misspelling of your brand. Is it out there? What's happening? And making sure that you're reporting those websites and where those occur on social media as quickly as possible. Sometimes popular hashtags will be used to masquerade as government entity, gov.ie. There are several scams going out at the moment that are based on government. Publicjobs.ie have a big one going on at the moment, and they are trying to avoid this WhatsApp scam that is occurring. Okay. Logo recognition. You can there are ways of putting your own logo in and doing a search to see where it occurs, in order to eliminate any false positives, and eliminate where it appears and it shouldn't appear, or where it is being duplicated and used for fraudulent purposes. So you need to look up your brand photographs, look up profile photographs, check on the internet for where they are located and where they are in use, and make sure that they are authorized locations. So risk and similarity scores. There are means and programs by which you can analyze account attributes that would be so you can do a search to see, is something masquerading as you? Is it a misspelling? Is it like this, the squatting, domain squatting, looking for those particular type of characteristics. So you need to be searching on social media on a consistent basis, have someone who will do that. That includes domain names, websites, and looking in the app stores, because sometimes you can have an app. It's very simple to create an app now, and there's lots of technology out there that will create apps for anyone who is minded to do so. And they do it in the name of a company, and then they're selling produce through that app. So it looks for all the world to a candidate that they're buying training, that they're maybe buying visa or paying fees for visas, when nothing like that is happening at all. Okay. So what are the key kind of actions that you need to put in place? First of all, if you have a social media team or a marketing team, you need to ensure that they're collaborating with your customer service team or your recruitment, your recruiters, to make sure that social media is being monitored, that your team names or the names of your team are being monitored online, to make sure that you are not being abused, that those names aren't being duplicated and used, but also that your customer service team are likely to receive calls of complaint. They're going to be the first place that someone will ring up and say, I got a WhatsApp message from you looking for money for sending me for an interview. That's not normal, and you shouldn't be doing that. So your customer service teams, or whoever takes the calls from your customers, your candidates, your clients, whoever is going to be that first point of contact, they must be sensitized to the possibility that they will receive such a message, that they will receive an odd call, an odd complaint, and be ready for the possibility of money or information being solicited in a way that isn't your normal business practice and isn't your normal procedures. You need to have, sorry, go back. There's three of them there. The next thing is to research your social media channels. Be looking out for your account name all the time, making sure that there aren't duplicates of you, of your business name out there, and that you're looking at you're proactively looking at what sort of technology should I be bringing on, and you're doing that on a scalable basis. You're looking at, well, what is appropriate to the size of your company. It may well be that you just put in a protocol of doing searches twice a week if you're a very small company, but if you're a larger company, then maybe you need to be buying in the technology that is doing all of this searching and automated searching for you. Yeah, go on to the next one. Thank you. The National Cyber Security Centre, and I put the website of it there, they have a fantastic checklist. It's a really useful document. It goes through all the things that you might like to consider. So it is really, really helpful. And I would urge everybody to follow through on that. and make sure that you're answering where you can that checklist. Some of the things may be for a much bigger company, and you'll say, well, sure, we never do that. But at least as you're analyzing it, that you're ensuring that everybody is in that thinking space that this could happen to us. Our clients, our candidates could be getting WhatsApp messages, could be being contacted through social media, or could be going on to social media thinking they're engaging with us when they aren't. When it comes to invoicing, implement protocols. Have someone phone if you have a new customer that you're establishing payment to, or a new supplier that you're making a payment to. Make sure that you have protocols other than just emails. If there's and that you have a notification in your terms of business, or that go out with your terms of business, that says, this is our invoicing protocol. If we are to ever make a change in or make a mistake on an invoice, you will be telephoned as well as followed up with an invoice. We will use multiple mechanisms to ensure that that invoice is safe to pay. Use your own website, to ensure that you're keeping your potential customers, your clients, your candidates aware that they might be scammed. And there are notifications that you can put up on your website to say, we never charge candidates for the recruitment service. It's against the law under the Agency Act anyway. So there are things like that I think you should have protocols on your website to say, scam alert. Just watch out. We won't contact you via X, Y, and Z. And maybe put out the way that you will definitely not happen, what will definitely not happen, to ensure that, a bit like on Post never contacts, AIB never contact you looking for your login details. There are things that just never happen in businesses. So think, what are the things that your company would never do, and maybe have that as a checklist on your website. We're going, so if you find yourself subject to a scam, well, first of all, anticipate now that this is going to happen to you and to your business. It's not about if, it's about when. So begin by assuming that this is definitely going to happen to you. And think about, well, what would happen if we had a social media? What would happen if we had candidates being charged in a pop-up entity that is mimicking our business and impersonating our business? What would you do? You need to know the telephone numbers of your IT people. Who would you contact? You have to have an emergency response in place to know, what are you going to do? How are you going? What happens if your CRM system is held to ransom, or your contact details are those you can contact? What is your backup plan? And make that with your IT people so that it is robust and can be ready to execute, so that offsite in a computer that isn't networked, isn't linked into a system, and cannot be contaminated, in that you have an emergency response ready to deploy. So put the basics in place that will protect your business, that will look at, well, what systems do we need to? We need to be going through our social media on a regular basis. There are standards in cyber safety, and they are ISO 27001. So that ISO standard is the cyber safety standard. Work that through with your IT people, whether they're internal or external. Make sure that you implement policies and controls that look up your entity, check your mobile, check your logo, check the use of your images, check the use of your staff's names. Make sure there's strong access controls to all of your computer systems. Make sure that you have 2 or 3-step verification processes. Make sure that you're changing passwords on a regular basis. Make sure that everybody has security training. All you need is someone in, and to click an email that comes in and looks authentic, to shut down your entire IT system. It has happened to agencies. It is recoverable, but by God, is it expensive, and is it difficult to then make sure that your client or your candidate information hasn't been scammed, hasn't been scraped. So look at the security for your supply chains. Who is your IT supplier? Are they up to an ISO standard? So you must have a response to a cyber attack. The National Cybersecurity Checklist will help you with that. Proactively monitor and consider how would you respond if you were the subject of a cyber attack. And if you are, and if it happens to you, we'll go on to the next one. You spring into action. First of all, you've got to make personal contact with those who are affected. So if your candidates have been scammed, you have got to put out, you've got to contact them to say, we believe that your data may have been scraped from our system. You need to advise them of their rights, and that they can contact the Gardaí. You offer support in the form of, so this may be a GDPR matter as well as everything else. Put up a notice on your website immediately advising of a potential scam involving your company, and that people should take great care if they're going onto a website that there is a website out there that's faking you or that impersonating you, or there is a social media account that is impersonating you. Report impersonation the minute that it occurs. Screenshot it and put it up on your social media to say, you may be receiving messages from this as social media presence. This is not us. Please do not engage. Please block it and report it the minute that you encounter it. So that would be a very important thing. And then contact your IT consultant and take whatever actions they say you should have in place. We'll go on to the next. Report it to your local Garda station. The National Cybersecurity Centre will say to you to do that. And there also is a report tab on the National Cybersecurity Centre's homepage, and that is their homepage there. And also a cyber attack may or may not involve a data breach. And in instances where it does involve a data breach, and information is taken that isn't already in the public domain, you are obliged to contact the Data Protection Commission. And that's it. And I will take questions if there are questions or if there's anything coming in.
Super, Mary, that's been hugely informative. Can I ask you, an awful lot of them are controls that we need to have in place, but there's also the human factor element to it. And say even in our own organization coming up to Christmas, a lot of my own people were contacted by somebody purporting to be me, asking them to buy gift cards. So logically across our group, I was saying to people, did it sound like me? That particular individual who was impersonating me was particularly dogmatic, which was in my favor because I don't speak to people like that. But I was contacted via other means. And an awful lot of us in agency land got really, really good around the time of GDPR being introduced, that if we had a locked spreadsheet, we'd send the password via a different means. Yes. And in terms of authorizing large payments or your accounts department changing details, the practical tips for us as outside of the security protocols, but in terms of good governance within an organization, what would you recommend?
So I think that you need, you need a system in place. You need a protocol in place that everybody sticks to. That's something that will be dependent on the size of your agency. So in an agency like yours, Siobhan, where there are a lot of people, not everybody maybe will speak to you every day or have access to you all the time, may go about their daily lives and not necessarily encounter you. So they need to know that if they suddenly get a phone call from Siobhan Kinsella, that would be unusual. So understanding that you verify that everyone is almost always on the alert for the possibility that this is fraud. Especially when we're in a realm now of deep fakes. So people could get a video or a message from you. You'll hear of parents getting messages from a voice message that sounds like, or what do you call those? The text messages recorded. I hate them with a passion. Voice notes, that's it. They might get a voice note that sounds like their child. They might get a voice note that are a text message. So in those, to say, if it's unusual, check it out. Don't always accept that it is the individual. And particularly if you have a junior member of staff receiving a phone call purporting to be the most senior member of staff, Well, they may be intimidated to not respond, intimidated and fearful. So people should always say, listen, can I just ring you back just to verify that? And
Mm.
I'll phone you. Then the minute they phone you, you would say, God, no, but aren't you great for checking up on that? Same thing with invoicing. There should be a system for payment to suppliers that a telephone call goes in to say, are you who you say you are? And that it's verified. The email is not accepted alone, but a verified landline telephone call needs to be made also. So you always back it up with a telephone call. You need to have online training or training with staff to be aware of what does it look like. I get maybe 4,000 emails a week in the Oireachtas. It's gone up since Christmas. I was only getting about 1,500 before Christmas, but since then I do. So when you have that kind of a turnover, and in the busyness of recruitment, there can be a lot of emails and a lot of turnover, but you always check who is sending this. If something looks odd about it, or makes grandiose promises, or seems to fix something very quickly and easily, if you just give this bank details or that information about yourself, check it may come up. We're used to, if I send you an email, it may come up to you as Mary Seery Kearney. But when you click into it and you look at what actually is the email address, you realize this isn't a real person, or this isn't someone that I've ever engaged with.
There you
So
go.
people need to be suspicious.
Mm.
Unfortunately, we need to be paranoid because it's far too easy for it to occur at the moment.
Absolutely. And well, I have a protocol in our organization that, different people report to different people. I'll only ever ring somebody with a compliment. So if it's anything other than a compliment, they won't take it as being real for me, because that's part of the psychological contract. But
Yes.
we've really, really interesting question. What happens, and this is from Jamie McGivern, what happens if you've made multiple representations to Facebook or Meta, as it is now, about fraudulent activity using your brand or impersonating your brand, and you don't get a reaction?
Oh, okay. Very interesting. Um, well, there are complaints. I'd out them on social media and say we've made several complaints here. They hate that negative publicity. Um, uh, X is a particularly problematic entity to deal with. I would say contact me, and I will make their lives hell. So I have contact with the very senior people within Meta, and have raised a lot of complaints. But it is a phenomenon. Now, in my own instance, it was instantly dealt with and blocked and whatever. But like that, they have a requirement. Their business model is dependent on them reacting to businesses who spend money on advertising. So it is important that you report it multiple times, but also out them on their own social media.
I've got a really interesting piece of information here from Declan Moore. He said, just a small note, Siobhan, you mentioned password protected spreadsheets. These are not encrypted and can be very easily bypassed without a password. The password feature typically just protects the workbook from edits. So anybody who has one of these protected files in front of them can theoretically get into it. That was a really interesting point. Thank you for that. You learn something new every day. Mary, another thing is the logic test. When Russell Crowe decided to follow me on Twitter or private message me, as did Kevin Bacon, obviously I knew that there was something up, because I'm just not that popular. So it's kind of, there's the smell test as well, or the duck test. If it walks like a duck and quacks
Mm.
like a duck, is it a duck? So in terms
Yeah.
of
Yeah,
the
and you're absolutely right. I mean, you need to go at these with a bit of suspicion. It might be a momentary ego boost, but it's probably not likely. So there are things of, you've got to wonder, why am I being followed by this person? What is this? Um, what are they to try and gain from it? You'll get a lot of solicitations via Messenger, block, delete, block, delete all the time.
And another thing that came up with the time that the phishing happened in our organization is to report it every single time on the Microsoft Office app, that it gives you an opportunity to report phishing, and
Yes,
it gives you an opportunity on WhatsApp to block. And I think all of those things are something that it's like, you don't wait for somebody else to report a gas leak. You don't wait for somebody else to report phishing.
absolutely. Absolutely. You make sure you do it all the time. And I mean, when you ring your local Garda station, if impersonation occurs, I'm sure they'll think, what? But they will log it. And we at least then there is some central collection of trends. And the National Cybersecurity Center is very good. They have resources on their website that are very, very helpful. Some of it is over all of our heads, and you'd need a degree in God knows what, astrophysics, to be able to even read it. But there are some very practical things that can be pulled out of executive summaries and a lot of the reports that are there, so they're very helpful.
Super. And I think that the one thing, the theme I see coming through as well, Mary, is that we all need to be incredibly suspicious of any instruction that's out of character, but particularly via email. And all of us and our accounts departments as well, who may not be as hyper aware of these as we are, we need to take the time to explain to them that this is happening and have a second verification step in the event that there's something outside of the normal protocol.
Absolutely, absolutely. If it isn't in its normal flow, anything that looks remotely different, then assume it to be a fraud and a fraud in action. They're not all as blatant now as the Nigerian prince wanting to give us millions. It's very subtle, and you're induced into very normal everyday things that would take you by surprise. I mean, or wouldn't take you by surprise. In the lead up to Christmas, there was an awful lot of that texting scams of you owe money to customs for produce that you brought in. Which of us didn't buy something on Amazon over Christmas, and you wouldn't really think twice of it? So tracking things like that, keeping it in your head. Sometimes it's late at night when we do the purchase, but remembering, actually, I shouldn't be paying duty on that. Why would I be paying duty on that? And if you can't pay it automatically the first time, if you have to start entering bank details, then you're in a fraud and you've got to get onto the bank immediately. I had an experience the Christmas before last where I followed that. I was expecting a package that I was expecting to pay customs duty on it. And it was one of these days just before Christmas, you're very busy, up to your ears, and I am paranoid about things. And lo and behold, I found myself entering in the long card number. And then I thought, hold on, this is weird. I rang Visa immediately to say, I've just entered in my number and hit return. I just want to put a freeze on my account. By the time I had done that, they had transferred money from my Visa into my current account with a view, or vice versa, because it's easier to rob money from a credit card than it is from your bank account. So I wasn't at the loss of any money, but the speed at which it operated was frightening.
No, that's huge. And I think one of the fantastic things of being part of the Employment and Recruitment Federation, Mary, is that we've become a community. And Sarah and Fitzgerald just made the point that if somebody is impersonating one of your competitors' personnel, sending links off to different groups or here, there, and everywhere, if we become aware of it, to notify each other.
Yes.
If it's not even just our own brand, if it's happening to a competitor brand and you know somebody in there, to all of us to be aware of it and pass on that information to
That's brilliant. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Siobhan, because at the end of the day, this is about the reputation of the recruitment sector. We have done extremely well in the ERF from a perspective of foreseeing GDPR, the predictions that recruitment was going to be a nightmare for GDPR and they were going to be full of breaches and all of the rest. None of that came to pass because there was a collective action, there was a collective responsibility for the reputation of the sector. This is really important because what we don't want to get out there is this impression that people are charged for services that they most certainly are not, and that it's against the law to charge for in accordance with the Agency Act. But it is really important that we are working together to safeguard the reputation of the industry.
Super. Well, on behalf of the industry, and I get the privilege of saying it to you, we're delighted to have had you here with us today, and we're very grateful that you are our DPO and to have the benefit of your expertise and skill with regard to the protection, not only of our own businesses, our financial well-being, our company financial well-being, but also the reputation of our industry. So Mary, you've been a fantastic sport yet again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My
Can
pleasure.
I just say I'll send out the slides to all participants, all attendees later on this afternoon with a link to the recording for this in case you missed any important facts. Thank you very much, both of you.
No problem.
Thank you very much.
maybe a note to send it to your accounts department or your back office department as well as your front of house. Thanks a million.
Brilliant.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.